Okay, so I'm here to talk to you guys about Avatar: The Last Airbender, the TV series that started in 2005 and ended in 2008. No, I'm not spoiling the TV series, but I will be discussing the culture and questions at the end. Now, let's just start, shall we? First off, we have the Air Nomads. Now, the Air Nomads would be seen wearing yellow, orange, or brown clothing. Young airbenders would wear shawls, while older airbenders would change into robes. Now, young boys training to be monks would shave their heads, and females would as well, but not entirely. Now, the reason why females would shave parts of their head was so they could shave just enough so that way the arrow could be seen. The arrow was a sign that they had mastered their element of airbending and to pay tribute to the first airbenders, the sky bison. Now, they were a very spiritual people, and they believed that all life was sacred, and so with that, they would preserve the environment around them, and they were all strict vegetarians. They are the only nation to have only benders and meditating as a daily routine. They disagreed with concepts of revenge, and they believed hope to be distraction. Air Nomads were run by senior monks and nuns called the Four Councils of Elders, and the people were generally calm, peaceful, and tranquil, but they had good senses of humor. Not only that, they believed equality for all and did not believe that it was important to have societies divided in different classes based on wealth. And they were accepting of all consenting loves. Now, as great as the Air Nation can be, let me just say, there's plenty more where that came from. So let's go see how it's going in the Water Tribe. Now, since the Water Tribes resided in the poles, a lot of them wore blue anoraks trimmed with white fur to keep themselves warm from the cold. The men would have their hair in half up, half down hairstyles, or they would wear what was called a warrior's wolf tail. The women would have their hair braided, or they would use accent beads. Now, the people of the Water Tribe had a strong sense of community and love, and they would make it a point to visit the North Pole or the South Pole every new moon. This was called the New Moon Celebration. It was, however, temporarily halted during the 100-Year War. The Northern Water Tribe had their men wearing a darker colored blue than the females, and the royalty of that tribe would wear purple. The women in that tribe would be able to marry at the age of 16, and they would be proposed to by something called a betrothal necklace. Despite this, the parents were the ones who chose their children's spouses. So there was a bit of a shift in the gender equality in this culture. However, they had a vast change in comparison to the Southern Water Tribe, where there was much more gender equality, and they had the belief that you should be allowed to love whoever you love, as long as you're not invading anyone else's personal choices. Now, the Southern Water Tribe had their children go through a rite of passage at the age of 14, where they would go through a sport called ice dodging, and they would be given marks of honor, called the mark of the brave, the mark of the wise, or the mark of the trusted. They were a pretty easygoing culture. Now, speaking of easygoing, this culture does not go with the flow. Let's see how the Earth Kingdom's doing. Earth Kingdom fashions vary greatly throughout the regions and classes, but we can agree that everyone wore green, brown, yellow, or beige. Now, depending on your class, depended if you wore a practical hairstyle or a little bit more of an elaborate hairstyle. But the Earth Kingdom army could always be found wearing green and beige uniforms with a cone-shaped hat to hide their hair. Now, the size of the Earth Kingdom is the largest one in the Avatar nations. So we can generally say that it's impossible to dictate a specific culture and or dialect within the regions, but we can actually agree that their personality was found as immovable and determined, much like their element, Earth. The Earth Kingdom has the least acceptance rate for same-sex marriages and have shown to be militaristically repressive in some cases. However, as I said before, due to the size of the Earth Kingdom, there are more tolerant regions, like that of Mizo Village. Now, they have a military consisting of both earthbending and normal foot soldiers, and they can be found with a navy. But I have to be honest with you guys, the navy isn't that impressive, considering that they once lost a fleet of ships to the pirate queen Tataka, who was a southern waterbender. They are a very honorable and prideful nation, but if you really want to get to a nation who knows all about honor, I can lead you there. Let's hop over to the Fire Nation. See, the people of the Fire Nation have an energy, will, desire, and drive to achieve what they want, and both outfits and architecture are all inspired by fire. But while these things are inspired by fire, it is honor that dictates everything in the land, including hairstyles. For example, hairstyles could signify status, and the idea of a lower-class individual touching the hair of upper-class citizens, well, the idea was horrible. Don't do it. Now, losers of Agni Kais shaved parts of their head bald to signify humility and to respect those that had beaten them in the Agni Kai. And the idea of cutting off a top knot was only done in extreme circumstances akin to death. You see, with the exception of the Hundred Years' War, the Fire Nation's ideas of worldviews was that unity, centralism, and strict order was what gave prosperity and stability. Now, while they weren't necessarily restricting freedom, children weren't allowed the luxury of being creative until they had been taught how to improve the Fire Nation and to bring honor to the family. Now, if one was lucky enough to be in the presence of the royal family, they had to be very well versed in manners and etiquette, because if you were to disrespect someone of the royal family, you could be challenged to an Agni Kai. Something as simple as the etiquette go and something like bowing. For instance, you were meant to bow when greeting, after business, when something nice happened. But if you were given an order by a superior officer, you were only meant to do the hand signal and rush to do as told. Now, unlike other countries, there was much gender equality. There was no issues with same-sex marriages, as those couples were respected and loved as much as any heterosexual couple. And with the exception of Fire Lord Sozan's reign, of course, the idea of marrying for love was a lot much common than the idea of an arranged marriage or something for political gain like you could typically see in the Northern Water Tribe. See, there was also no restrictions or disapproval if a married couple decided to separate. Now, like in our real world, the ATLA universe had so much diversity in it, and I've only just skimmed the surface thanks to our time limit there, but I have a question for you. Out of all the nations, where do you think you'd be most home?